what really hooked me onto opera was just this kind of raw emotions and how opera deals with very human themes. And with all great art, it's always a matter of the more you know, the deeper you want to know more about it. I mean, I'm a little bit OCD. I'm very compulsive when it comes to like learning something. I need to know everything about it. So for me, it's very natural.
Hi, and welcome to the second episode of What's in Your Opera Amenity Kit. Today we have conductor Lien Boon Hua on How Can I Appreciate Opera? Boon, can you share with us more about yourself?
Sure. My name is Lien Boon Hua and I'm a conductor. I made my debut with the Singapore Lyric Opera last November in the gala concert, and I was really looking forward to a production of The Magic Flute this August that was unfortunately postponed due to the COVID situation. So please keep your eyes peeled for further announcements on that.
So Boon, can you tell us more about how you get started on opera and what makes you like opera and all?
Yeah, I got started in opera actually during my teens. This was a time where CDs were still around, and I remember going to CD shops very often to buy recordings of classical music because I was really hooked on it. And a big influence was some of the shop owners really knew the CDs they were selling, and they were recommending, have you checked out this new recording of Mahler or this new recording of Puccini? And I always found that really endearing, and it's something that we don't have these days, unfortunately. And so I remember one of the shop owners was very passionate about opera, and so he was always introducing to me, check out this opera, check out that opera, and certain recordings. So one of the I think pivotal recording that changed my life was Puccini's Tosca. That was kind of a historic recording, I think from 1956, with Maria Callas on the title role. And this was a kind of a landmark recording because it was so vivid, and the emotions were so strong in that recording. I remember hearing it again and again, on the CD player, and I was just so hooked by, even though I didn't understand the language at that point, but the music was just so overwhelming, and I really got hooked on that. And then eventually I was trained as a trombonist, so I went to the Yongsu-Do Conservatory of Music, which is where I teach today. And when I was studying in the conservatory, I was also freelancing a lot as a trombone player, and I was very fortunate to be playing with Singapore Lyric Opera a couple of times during my student days, and I always remembered being very, very excited because I get to hear these magnificent voices on the stage, even though I was in the pit. And that kind of looking forward to the next performance, because I get to hear, what would the soprano do today? How will she hold my breath from this beautiful, high note that she's holding? And so, I was always very, very interested in opera from a player perspective. Then eventually, when I started working in Europe, in Poland, as the assistant conductor of the radio orchestra in Katowice, we also did opera production. So there I was involved in Salome as well as the Rake's Progress, two huge operas, and we got some really incredible cast, and that was also kind of a really exciting experience for me, getting to see opera from a very different perspective, as well as also in the Richard Strauss Festival, where I was working there one summer. And we got to do, quite interestingly, Purcell's Dido and Aeneas. And so, having all these different influences makes me really, really excited about opera.
So if I'm not wrong, when you were playing in SLO in the past, you were also playing for Magic Flute, right? It was one of the production that you were playing, right?
Yes, it was Magic Flute, and I also believe it was La Traviata as well as La Bohème.
Wow, interesting that you'll be conducting the Magic Flute.
I know.
The coming
was that
one.
10 years ago, perhaps?
Yeah, because it's 10 years ago. Can you give some advice to beginners or to the general public, some beginner's guide to opera?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah, it sounds very simple, but it's very difficult to.
Yes and no, I guess. What really hooked me onto opera was just this kind of raw emotions and how opera deals with very human themes. Human universal themes like love and loss and betrayal and comedy, humor, and these are kind of universal themes that we live through every day. And opera also presents a kind of an alternate reality, a fantasy, if you may. But at the same time, the kind of love story that developed from it is just so, there knows no bounds. It crosses all the boundaries, be it east or west. We all have heard of stories like that. We all want to feel like we're in love like that. Perhaps a good way in would be some highlights. I remember when I was younger, these kind of highlights CDs were very popular. So instead of the full opera, a 3 CD opera, they would just be one CD where they pick out some of the best tunes and some of the short excerpts from each opera, and it can be a collection from various operas. And I think that's a great way into the opera world, because you get to hear some of the best tunes from various composers, and then you get to see which are the composers that you like, or why this particular composer draws you in. What about the music that you find so fascinating? And then from there, it's really kind of detective work. And with all great art, it's always a matter of the more you know, the deeper you want to know more about it. And it's so beautiful, when you start to hear a beautiful tune, a beautiful melody, and you're just, wow, this is so perfect. And then you find out the words behind it. And then you start to realize, oh my God, he's singing maybe about love, or about the love that have left him and then there's this sadness that you find a new dimension in it. And then on top of that, you find out more about the story. You find out more about the character. Who is this character? Why is this character behaving a certain way? Is this character, a little bipolar or whatever, because we all have, a little bit of that tendencies in us. And it so becomes a very human art, because you see different aspects of us in these characters. And then the more you find out about, all these little things, the more you're drawn into it, because then, at least this is my experience, there can never be a definitive recording of something, because once you are so sucked in, and then you start to have very, very concrete ideas about how this character should be, or how this tempo should be, or how this melody should, be supported, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is why maybe I became a conductor, because I had so many opinions about stuff. But I think it's an art form that really draws you in when you take the first step. When you pick up the phone call and call somebody, and then you start a relationship, and that relationship really developed to something extremely wonderful.
Okay, so like you would suggest to our viewers out there to try out with some highlights. And I think it's pretty accessible, right? Like YouTube, Spotify, we have a lot of this kind of snippets.
Absolutely. I mean, especially YouTube these days. Everything's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And something that I like to see is trailers from other opera companies. And then you start to see what is the set they use, and what kind of idea, because Magic Flute is a very universal story, but everybody sets it differently. Some, how does, for example, Papageno look like in this production, and in another production he's wearing a suit.
Yeah.
And it's all fantasy, but at the same time everybody has their own take on it.
Yeah.
So I think information is so easy to get these days. Everything is on your phone, is on your iPad.
Just Google.
Yeah,
and then
just Google, and you can find so much information, not just about the story of it, but even the background and how the circumstances of the premiere. And all these are a really fun stuff to know. It's not a requirement. You don't need to know all this before going to an opera, but it gives you a little bit more context and a little bit more fun about the whole.
There's more satisfaction when you get to learn this part of art,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a little bit OCD. I'm very compulsive when it comes to learning something. I need to know everything about it. So for me, it's very natural.
But I'm sure there are a lot of people who are like that. But because opera has this barrier and everything, so not a lot of people explore it, or just even they know it or heard of certain things, they won't go and do research about it. They were just okay, it's like a passing
I think
soundtrack or something.
There are many different kind of opera fans. I mean, the most enthusiastic opera fans are just they have incredible knowledge about everything. They know which singer sang what and blah blah blah, all that information at the fingertips. And it's a whole gamut. It's a whole gamut of opera fans.
So what do you think about ticket prices? I think this is something that a lot of people have a they can't really justify whether is it worth going to an opera, because because it's X amount of money, and then instead they tend to mostly compare it with movie tickets, or just you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. I mean, spending power, people have a choice. And I think what you're paying for in an opera ticket, a lot of people don't see, a lot of the hard work that's been put into an opera production behind the scenes. I mean, let's not even talk about, the kind of hard work from the musicians and the singers to be on stage. I mean, let's take that for granted. And let's think about, when you look on the stage, you see the beautiful lighting, that changes, and you see the beautiful sets that has been handmade for this particular production. And then you look at the costumes, every single costume is tailored for that person that's on stage. Then you think about the incredible hours of rehearsals that the singers have to go through. So this is something that, when I was a player, that's something that I really didn't understand. I understood too, how much rehearsal was required. And singers typically typically start rehearsing maybe a month or so before the first premiere. And they work easily 3, 6, or even more hours every day, rehearsing scenes again and again and again, and getting something right, getting not just the sound, but just kind of the stage movement. And there's so much hard work and tears, and the rehearsals go on practically every day, almost every day. Maybe there's a day of break in the rehearsal process, and all that hard work, for 4 weeks of that, where everybody is singing and putting it together, and then the orchestral musicians come in the last week, and then we put together a show, in a very, very short amount of time, when all the components are in. I mean, that takes an incredible amount of effort. It takes an incredible amount of willpower from everybody. And I think, paying the ticket price is really not just justified, but imagine all the hard work and sweat. And I think it's really a worthy investment for yourself, because you get to go to a concert hall, a theater, and enjoy this kind of immersive experience where you get in touch with your own kind of human emotions, and and it inspires you to more ideas, or to see side of you that you don't see. I mean, that kind of experience is really priceless, I would say.
Cannot be compared.
Yeah, great art is always priceless. And so, on top of that, I know that, for example, Singapore Live Opera has very competitive prices, very, very reasonable.
Yeah, and we do have every now and then some discounts for school students, because we also want to give students a chance to have the exposure, so that it's not too expensive for them.
Yeah.
And then every now and then we will also do giveaway, so you can stay tuned to to the viewers out there. You can keep a lookout on our social media platforms, and then we do have giveaways, and then we have membership and things like that. So you brought out a good point. We rehearse, especially the singers, they rehearse almost a month before.
Yeah.
But we have to also remember that before this 1 month, they have to really memorize their music and learn their music inside out. So, and to understand the rules. So it's it's really a whole investment of even the backstage, everything. All this comes at least half a month before, or 9 months, or even a year before. So I think to me personally, maybe because I'm in the company, then I understand, okay, if I had to spend X amount of money on this, I would, because these are the things that I'm paying for.
Right.
Yeah, but from a perspective from someone, a concert goer or opera goer that's a first timer, they may be like, oh, $60 or $80 is too much, that kind of thing. So hopefully, that our audience out there, understand okay, what are they paying for?
Absolutely.
And then can be more open-minded to join us in the future.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, the high prices. There are various categories, of course, and of course, for a better seat, you pay a higher price. But that price really goes back to all these people, putting it together for such a long period of time, and everybody is doing it for the art. Everybody is doing it. I mean, it's not a super lucrative business. But we're doing it because of pure passion, and because we're doing it because we believe it can change your life through music. And that's why I think that amount of money is really an investment for yourself, more than anything else.
Even if just the first time, it's just one experience, I think it's enough to change your perspective of going to a live theatre performance.
Absolutely.
Or something.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being live and everything, 100 over people working on this project?
Right.
Just perform at the same time. I think it's just something amazing that cannot be replaced with other.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so for example, if I'm a beginner and new to opera, so what are some things I should look out for when I watch an opera?
Like I mentioned, it's really an immersive experience. So when you go inside there, whatever catches your eye, everything is so interesting. For example, if you find the sets are really cool, and you try to understand, why are the sets made this way? How does it reflect the story? Or you find the singing particularly beautiful from maybe the lead soprano, or you find that, maybe this music is so particularly moving, and you want to know more. I mean, there's so many ways in. There really isn't kind of this is how you need to do it. I think the most important thing is just to get a ticket and come to the opera and just enjoy yourself and see what draws your attention. And all this is also great food for thought and for conversation, and talking about it with your with a friend that you decide to bring along. I think that's really great. I mean, there's a social element of going to an opera that's really I think, quite understated.
Dressing up for the event, getting ready.
It's really wonderful. I mean, of course, there is this whole push towards, things have to be casual and all that. But I do feel like when you dress up to go to something, there's a heightened sense of occasion, and it gives you more excitement, and it makes something special. I think we're always trying to find something that is out of the ordinary. Our life is in a certain rhythm, and when you have an opera production or something that you can gear up for and go there and experience something completely new, I think that's really wonderful. And so there's so many ways in when you go to a performance. I mean, as a conductor myself, I always find myself in seats at the side, so I can look at the orchestra and look at the conductor, and I love to see what my colleagues are doing and trying to learn from them in their experience. So that's for me. But there's so many ways. It's difficult to pinpoint. This is how you need to do it.
Last question of the day. So, how can I better prepare myself before watching an opera?
So perhaps a light meal and a little bit of wine that will really help. I feel like there's no real need to do any specific preparation before an opera, because I think everybody's different. So for some people, you like to go in without having any, preconceived notion of what's going to happen. And for some people like me, where I really want to find out about everything, then I try to read as much as possible. But there is really no need, because an opera should be able to speak to you quite directly, and you should be able to feel, the emotions, because it's so universal. Of course, there are certain maybe more controversial productions where you have La Boheme that's set in the space, or it's kind of more radical ideas. But I believe with Singapore Lyric Opera, you guys try to produce operas in the most accessible fashion. And I think for our audience out there that wants to come to an SL production, you just show up, be open. I think that's the most important part. Be open about how the opera experience will change you, and you might be very surprised at the end of the evening.
And to add on, we also have subtitles all the time. So like, if you are worried about, like, if our audience, they are worried about language-wise not being able to understand, maybe, like, personally, I would do like some read up on the synopsis, a short one, and then before, or maybe listen to some famous arias from it.
Right.
Then to better prepare myself.
Okay.
But it's really up to each and everyone. Like, how do you want to come in with?
Of course, when you listen to something before, then during the whole show, there's something for you to catch on to. That's really, really great. And if you don't want that, also, the program notes usually have the program booklet. Sorry, not just notes. Usually have a synopsis, kind of a bio of the artist if you're interested, and also even some of the ideas and some of the history behind it that really gives you a kind of all-rounded information about it. So show up, be excited. I think that's really fun.
Thank you for sharing with us so much today, Boon. And I think it's really insightful and helpful for people who are trying to come, still have hesitations about attending an opera, because after all, it's like 2.5 or 3 hours long. So it's like, so I think with your little tips and like sharing, it really helps our audience and viewers out there understand better. For our viewers, if you have any questions for Boon Hua, feel free to drop down in the comments below, and then we will answer to them. With that, we've come to the end of today's episode, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in, and thank you once again, Boon Hua, for being really, really spontaneous about this. So join us in the next episode, where we have a guest who is not based in Singapore. Stay tuned to find out who. Thank you, and see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Because it is a really good formula. That formula has a good essence of perfume, the perfume of opera. And when I'm performing and I'm singing to the audience, and to remember that I am start singing for my mother, for my grandmother, I remembering why I'm an opera singer.